everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Jay from Coding with Jaybird, where I upload weekly tutorials to help build your confidence in coding. Today we're going to learn about CSS positioning. Let's get started, shall we? The CSS position property is very useful when you want to move an element or position an element to a particular corner or location on the web page. Let's start with position fixed. So I have a few p tags and a couple of divs that I'm going to use to demonstrate these concepts. So moving on to our styles.css, let's work on this first box here, which is a p tag with a yellow background and the blue border. A position fixed element doesn't move and is positioned relative to the viewport. It stays fixed to that corner even when the user scrolls the web page. So let's apply that to our first paragraph tag. And I'll give it a property of position and a value of fixed. And now we can pick corners of the web page. So I could say something like bottom 0, and when I save it, it moved it to the bottom corner of the web page. I could say right 0, and it'll move it to the bottom right corner of the web page. So for the demo, let's just move it to the top right and leave it there. Next, we have position sticky, which I'll apply to this orange or this coral shaded paragraph. When I apply position sticky to an element, it basically stays stuck to the top of the page once the user scrolls down below it. So let's apply position sticky, and we're going to stick it to the top of the web page. So watch what happens when I scroll down. At this point, it hasn't moved. It's still in the same position. But when I scroll down, we can see, oh, now it's stuck. And any text after it is still continuing to move. Now, this actually might make a bit more sense if I add a bit more lorem ipsum to this p tag. So let's go and do that. So I'm just going to get rid of this lorem ipsum and maybe let's say lorem 200. And we'll save it. And now when I scroll up, we'll see that the text keeps scrolling and then this coral background paragraph hasn't moved. It's stuck to the top of the web page. Next, I want to talk about position relative, and I'm going to apply that to this pink box here. This makes an element position itself relative to its normal position in the document flow. So I can take this pink box here, which is actually a div, and I can give this a position property with a value of relative. And now I can select where I want to move it. So I can say, let's move it top 30 pixels. And what this does is it makes it go 30 pixels away from the top in the positive direction. So originally this pink box started somewhere around here, just under the p tag. Now it's moved it 30 pixels away or down from the top. I can also move it negative 30 pixels because right now you can see it's overlapping this image and I don't really like that. So if I say negative 30 pixels, it's going to move upward away from its normal position, which was just under the p tag, and now it's going to overlap the p tag. Okay, next I can also apply a left. So let's say left of 50 pixels. And this is going to make it go 50 pixels away from the left in the positive direction. So originally this pink box would have been right here, right up against the left side here. But instead it's moved 50 pixels away or to the right. Now if I did minus 50, you can imagine it would go 50 away to the left and you would be missing a portion of this. So let's see that in practice. And there you go. With a minus 50, we lose a portion of the box and it moves away from the viewport. So let's put that one back to plus 50. It just looks a bit nicer. Okay, next I'm going to talk about position absolute. When you apply position absolute onto an element, it's positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. So not to itself and not to the viewport. In this case, the blue box is positioned relative to the parent, which is the pink box. Okay, so if you go in the index.html, you can see that this div called ID of absolute, which says position absolute, this is our blue box, its parent div is the one with an ID of relative. All right, so let's go in here into our CSS and let's modify our blue box. So I'm going to apply position absolute onto this. Now when I save it, nothing really happens. I have to tell it where I want it to go. So let's say I want to move it up. I would say top 0, and it's going to move it to the top of this pink box. Now it hasn't moved it left or right. So now I could say move it right 0. And as you can see, it's moved all the way to the right and all the way to the top. Similarly, you can move it to the bottom left or bottom right, whatever you would like to do. Now you're probably wondering, why is this so useful? Why do I even care for this? Well, this is really good when you want to position something on a web page. Like let's say you have an image and you want to position some text over that image. So we're going to go over that next. So I've got this image, it's like a holiday image with like a little snowflake ornament on a Christmas tree. And what I want to do is I want to take this text called holidays and I want to position it roughly in the middle of this image. So let's go in our HTML file and see how I've created this. So I have a div with an ID of wrapper, which contains the image, and another div with the word holidays written inside it. Now the image is taking up the whole width here, and you can see that because I've got at the very top of my CSS, I've said give it a width of 100%. So I'm forcing the width to go the entire width of the screen and then auto adjust the height accordingly. All right, so that's why this text holidays is being moved further down. So how would I position this text onto that image? Well, position absolute is what we would have to use, but position absolute only works if you have position relative on the wrapper or the container or the parent element, just like we did with this pink and blue box. So let's grab this wrapper, which has an ID of wrapper, and let's apply some styling to that first. So I'll say ID of wrapper. Let's give this a position relative. Of course, nothing's going to happen yet until I come along to the greeting, which is the text here, and I apply some styles to that as well. So now I have to say position absolute. And now it's going to take this text that says holidays and it's going to position it based on the image. And of course, it's going to be based on the values that I give it. So I'm going to say top, and let's start with top 0. So you can see holidays moved up to the top. Now, I don't really like that. I want it somewhere in the middle. So let's estimate something, maybe 100 pixels and see how that looks. No, I don't really like that too much either. So let's see 150 pixels. Not bad. It's more or less in the center. Now I want to move it to the middle. So how do I move it over? Well, I'm going to say left 200 pixels. Oh, wow, that worked perfectly. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do is say I want to move it 150 pixels away in the positive direction from the top of the image or the parent container, and 200 pixels away or in the positive direction from the left side of the image. And that's basically how we center some text over an image. So at this point, you've learned the basics of CSS positioning. Have fun with this, experiment a little with some of your own code. I quite enjoy using this for my web pages, especially when I'm working with like a sticky nav, or I've got some like text and images that I want to play around with, or if I want to move some content to a particular corner of the web page. So anyway, give it a try, see how you like it. That concludes my video on CSS positioning. This HTML and CSS series has almost come to an end, everyone, and I'm looking for some ideas for what my next series should be on. I'm thinking maybe Flexbox, maybe Bootstrap. I know there's a new version of Bootstrap out. Anyhow, any ideas you may have, please feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll think about them. I hope you learned something new today, and until next week, keep on coding.